In the 1980s, while the world watched Japan build cars and cameras, its engineers were quietly building something far heavier. Machines that could lift a house, float on the ocean, and even help tear down the Berlin Wall. Most people have never heard their names. They were outmuscled, outmarketed, and eventually forgotten. But without these 10 Japanese excavators, the modern construction site wouldn't exist. Some broke world records, one reshaped an entire coastline. Let's dig them up, one by one. Number 10. The Sumitomo Esh series. Let's start with a machine almost nobody outside Japan talks about anymore. And that's exactly the point. Sumitomo isn't a name most people connect with digging. They're better known as one of Japan's oldest industrial giants, with roots stretching back centuries. But quietly, from the 1960s onward, Sumitomo construction machinery was building hydraulic excavators, and they did it in a very clever way. Instead of reinventing the wheel, they partnered with the American firm Linkbelt, forming a joint development agreement that split the engineering work across the Pacific. Sumitomo even exported machines to the United States through the FMC Corporation, meaning American operators were sometimes running Japanese steel without fully realizing it. By the early 1980s, Sumitomo had launched its own SH series of hydraulic excavators, built around what the company called intelligent hydraulics, a system designed to squeeze more work out of every drop of fuel. And here's the part that shocked the industry. At a time when everyone was obsessed with raw horsepower, Sumitomo was obsessed with efficiency. That philosophy was decades ahead of its time. Today, fuel economy is a headline feature on every excavator brochure. Back then, it made Sumitomo the underdog nobody took seriously. The machines were reliable, precise, and frankly a little boring, which is why they've been forgotten. But that quiet obsession with fuel-saving hydraulics laid groundwork that the whole industry would later copy. The tortoise, it turns out, was building the future while the hares were revving their engines. Number 9. The Kato HD series. Next up is a brand that once ruled an entire continent and then almost vanished. Kato Works was founded in 1895, originally building locomotives, then engines, tractors, road rollers, and cranes. In 1967, Kato started manufacturing fully hydraulic excavators, and by the 1970s and 80s, its HD series had spread across the world. The lineup ran from the 10-ton HD 350 up to the HD 1100G, a 22-ton beast with a 1 cubic meter bucket, later replaced by the HD 1200G. Now here's the shocking part. In Australia, Kato excavators didn't just sell, they dominated. At one point, the brand reportedly held around 40% of the entire Australian excavator market. For a while, renting an excavator in Australia basically meant renting a Kato. That's an astonishing figure for any single manufacturer, let alone an imported Japanese one. Why did operators love them? Simplicity. Early Kato machines were almost defiantly basic. A diesel engine drove a double pump. Mechanical linkages opened and closed the valves, and the harder you revved the throttle, the faster everything moved. No computers, no complicated electronics, just analog muscle. Some of the very first models even used chain drive to the track sprockets, like the old cable excavators before them. They were nicknamed mobile oil leaks because hydraulic sealing technology hadn't fully caught up, but they got the job done, day in and day out, with almost no fuss. So why is Kato forgotten today? Business, not engineering. When Kato's importer in New Zealand, Clyde Engineering, collapsed in the mid-1980s, the brand lost its dealer network and its momentum in key export markets. A machine that once had 40% market share slipped into the background almost overnight. Kato still builds excavators today, but that golden era when a simple, tough, honest Japanese digger owned an entire country is a story most people have completely forgotten. Number 8. The Kubota KH series. Now we shrink things down way down to talk about a machine that changed construction forever, even though it barely comes up to your waist. Kubota is a name you probably associate with tractors and small engines. But Kubota was also one of the pioneers of the mini excavator. The company launched its KH-1 back in 1974, and through the 1980s, it expanded the KH series into a full family of compact diggers, and these little machines quietly triggered one of the biggest revolutions in the entire industry. Here's the problem they solved. In dense Japanese cities, full-size excavators were useless. Streets were narrow, plots were tiny, and homes were packed together. You physically could not get a 20-ton machine into a residential job site. So for years, workers dug house foundations by hand, with picks and shovels, slow, brutal, exhausting labor. The mini excavator changed all of that. Suddenly, one operator in a tiny machine could do the work of a whole crew in a space barely wider than a hallway. Kubota poured serious engineering into this segment through the 1980s, improving digging force, adding proper cabs, and refining controls so the machines could work with real precision in impossibly tight spots. And here's why this matters to you wherever you're watching from. The compact excavator category that Kubota helped build is now one of the fastest growing and best-selling in the entire world. Every landscaper, every plumber, every small contractor with a mini digger on a trailer owes a debt to these forgotten 1980s Japanese machines. They didn't shock the world with size, they shocked it by proving that small could be mighty. And the industry never looked back. Number 7. The Yanmar Mini Excavators, staying small, but crossing an ocean. Because our number 7 didn't just change Japan, it quietly conquered Europe. Yanmar is legendary in the world of diesel engines. But long before most people knew that, Yanmar was pushing into compact construction machinery. In fact, Yanmar is often credited with launching one of the world's first diesel-powered mini excavators, the YNB 300, back in 1968, a pioneering concept built specifically for tight urban work sites in Japan. But the real shock-the-world moment came in the 1980s. In 1984, Yanmar began importing its compact excavators into Europe, and the timing was perfect. European cities had the exact same problem as Japanese ones: old, crowded, narrow, historic streets where big machines simply couldn't fit. Yanmar's nimble diesel minis were the answer nobody in Europe had built yet. The response was so strong that by 1989, Yanmar formed a partnership on the continent, the alliance that became Aman Yanmar, cementing its foothold in the European market. A Japanese company that most Europeans had never heard of was suddenly digging foundations across the continent. What makes this forgotten story so important is what it started. Yanmar helped prove that the compact excavator wasn't just a Japanese curiosity, it was a global product. Their success in Europe forced Western manufacturers to sit up and pay attention, and it kicked off decades of fierce competition in the mini market. Those early diesel Yanmars chugging away on cobblestone streets in the 1980s were the tip of a spear that reshaped construction across an entire continent. And almost nobody remembers they got there first. Number 6. The Takuchi TB series. This next one is my favorite because it connects a tiny obscure excavator to one of the most famous moments of the entire 20th century. Takuchi was founded in 1963 in Nagano, Japan by engineer Akio Takuchi. And in 1971, the company did something no one had done before. It built the world's first true compact excavator, the TB1000, a small machine with a full 360-degree slewing upper body, exactly like a full-size excavator, just shrunk down. This is the machine that essentially invented the entire category we just talked about with Kubota and Yanmar. Through the 1980s, Takuchi kept refining its TB series compacts and expanding worldwide. And then came the moment that puts this machine in the history books. In 1989, when the Berlin Wall came down and the world watched in disbelief as Germany reunited, Takuchi compact excavators were physically there, used in the demolition and clearing of the wall itself. Think about that for a second. One of the most symbolic, world-changing events of the century. The fall of the Iron Curtain, and part of the muscle that tore that concrete apart was a small forgotten Japanese excavator from a company most people have never heard of. It didn't make the news, it didn't get the credit, but it was right there in the rubble of history. Takuchi also invented the world's first compact track loader back in 1986, another category-defining machine. But it's that image, a humble Japanese digger clearing the ruins of the Berlin Wall, that proves these forgotten machines weren't just tools. Sometimes they had a front-row seat to history. Number 5. the Yutani and Kobelco series. Now we get into the story of how one of today's most famous excavator brands was actually born in the 1980s from a company you've probably never heard of. Before there was Kobelco, there was Yutani Heavy Industries, and Yutani was a genuine innovator. Back in 1963, Yutani built the first wheel-type hydraulic excavator ever made in Japan, the TY4. Meanwhile, the industrial giant Kobe Steel had been building construction machinery since the 19th. Then came the pivotal moment. In April 1983, Kobe Steel acquired the shares of Yutani Heavy Industries and set up a hydraulic excavator development and production base in Hiroshima. Two separate streams of Japanese engineering, Yutani's excavator know-how and Kobe Steel's industrial muscle, were about to merge into one. And out of that merger came the machine that started it all, the very first SK series excavator. Those two letters, SK, have been stamped on the company's excavators ever since. If you've ever seen a modern Kobelco digging on a job site, its DNA traces directly back to this forgotten 1980s union in Hiroshima. Here's how big that legacy became. Decades later, in 2021, the company celebrated building its 300,000th hydraulic excavator, a number counted all the way back from that first SK model. 300,000 machines, all descended from a merger most people have completely forgotten. The Yutani name faded from the world stage, but the SK series it helped create is now one of the most respected excavator lines on Earth. Not bad for a machine born out of a quiet corporate handshake in Number 4. The Komatsu PC220. Now we reach a machine that didn't just do a job well, it fundamentally changed how every excavator on the planet would be built. To understand why, you need to know Komatsu's secret. For years, Komatsu had built machinery under a technical partnership with the American firm Bucyrus Erie. But in 1980, Komatsu did something bold. It ended that partnership and launched its own independent line, the PC series of hydraulic excavators. This was Japan standing on its own 2 feet, no longer borrowing American technology, but building it from scratch. And then in 1982 came the breakthrough. Komatsu released the PC202, and it carried a piece of technology called OLSS, the Open Center Load Sensing System. Now that sounds like dry engineering jargon, but here's what it actually meant. The machine could sense how much power it truly needed, and stop wasting energy when it wasn't digging hard. When the control sat in neutral, or during fine, delicate movements, the old machines bled power and fuel for nothing. OLSS slashed that waste dramatically. It also made the machine start smoother and run quieter. This was one of the very first energy-saving hydraulic systems in the entire industry, and it arrived in 1982 when almost nobody else was thinking that way. Komatsu had cracked the code on efficiency, and the PC series took off. The PC200 became one of the most successful and widely copied excavators in the history of construction, a machine you can still find working on job sites around the world in updated form today. The original PC202 has been forgotten by the general public, but every operator today who enjoys a fuel-efficient, smooth, quiet excavator is living in the world that this 1982 Komatsu created. It didn't just dig dirt, it dug the industry out of the age of wasted energy. Number 3. The Hitachi X200. For our top 3, we turn to a single company that absolutely dominated the heavyweight class, Hitachi. And we start with a machine so influential that its shadow falls over almost every excavator built since. Hitachi has serious pedigree. Back in 1965, it built the UH-03, the first hydraulic excavator made entirely with Japanese domestic technology, with no foreign help at all. It pioneered a 2-pump hydraulic system that went on to become a world standard. So when Hitachi launched its EX series in the mid to late 90s, the star of that lineup was the EX200, a roughly 20-ton crawler excavator that hit the market in the late 1980s. On paper, it sounds unremarkable, but the EX200 became one of the most iconic and copied excavators ever made. Hitachi built it around what it marketed as human touch engineering, an early serious focus on operator comfort with the widest cab in its class, plenty of legroom, and controls designed to reduce fatigue during long days in the seat. Why does this matter? Because the 20-ton excavator is the single most common size class in the entire world. It's the workhorse, the machine you see on almost every construction site on Earth. And the EX200 helped define what that workhorse should be: powerful, comfortable, reliable, and durable enough to keep running for decades. Even today, you can find original EX200s from the 1980s still turning dirt. Most people walk past a 20-ton excavator without a second thought. They have no idea that a forgotten Hitachi from the late 1980s helped write the blueprint for the exact machine they're looking at. That's the quiet power of a true classic. Number 2. The Hitachi X8000. Now we go big. Really big. Our number 2 proves what happens when a quiet 1980s experiment is allowed to grow for 40 years. Back in 1979, Hitachi built the UH-801, an ultra-large hydraulic excavator weighing around 173 tons. At the time, it was the largest on Earth, and Hitachi shipped it across the Pacific to work in North American mines. That single machine is officially recognized as the birth of Hitachi's entire mining business. Most people have never heard the name UH-801, but its bloodline is still digging today, and it got monstrously bigger. That 1979 experiment evolved into the EX series, scaling up generation after generation until it produced the giant at the top of Hitachi's range, the EX-8000. This thing weighs around 800 tons, heavier than 2 fully loaded jumbo jets, with a bucket big enough to swallow a truck and roughly 4,000 horsepower on tap. Machines this size force engineers to reinvent everything: hydraulics, cooling, controls, to survive around the clock in brutal mines. Every 800-ton Hitachi tearing ore from a mountain today is the grown-up version of a forgotten 1980s giant that never stopped growing. Number 1. The Kobeiko SK3500D. And now number 1. A machine so tall and with a job so strange that the first time you see it work, your brain refuses to believe the scale. The SK series, born in 1983 from the merger of Kobe Steel and Yutani. 4 decades later, that same bloodline landed in the Guinness Book of World Records. In the mid-2000s, Kobelco unveiled the SK3500D, an ultra-high-reach demolition machine weighing around 327 tons, built on a 200-ton crane base. But the headline is the reach. It extends a 3-piece arm over 65 meters into the sky, tall enough to dismantle a 21-story skyscraper. In 2006, Guinness crowned it the tallest demolition machine on the planet. Here's why it mattered. In crowded Japanese cities, you can't safely implode a tower. So Kobelco reinvented demolition. The SK3500D stands on the ground, reaches to the roof, and takes the building apart from the top down, piece by piece, with a giant hydraulic claw. No explosives, just patience and precision. Most people have never heard its name. But the tallest demolition machine ever recorded came from that forgotten 1983 handshake in Hiroshima, and it rewrote the record books. If you enjoyed digging up this hidden history, let me know in the comments which of these machines shocked you the most and which forgotten classics you'd like to see next.